Hello CIS30A. I wanted to go over what we need to do for our last session, our last week before the final exam. So in this week we are going to do one lab. So if you take a look at the note page and the videos and then complete lab 5, you can attempt extra credit, take quiz 2, and work on your course project and finish up the final review. Final exam will be released in week 6. You have from the beginning of the week until Thursday to complete the final exam and turn in your project parts. So make sure you do that before the end of the course. So check out week 5 to-do list. You will find the information for this week notes on the notes page. The notes page contain overall graphical user interface information, a little bit about Tkinter and other packages. And then I also put links on for the things that you might come across in case you run into pip installation issue for Windows, or if you wanted to further look for the tutorials and the design to make widgets. There's TK tutorial link there. Now for the lab this week, we are going to complete lab 5, and in lab 5 you will be working with Tkinter. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the packages that you can use for graphical user interface. So Python has quite a few toolkits that you can use for graphical user interface. Things that you can, the toolkits allow you to create drop-down menus, buttons, pop-up windows, things like that for the user to interact with the application. The simplest package that you can use is Python TCL/TK widget set, which is known as Tkinter. This is easy to install and usually comes with the binary distribution of Python. And if you have Mac OS and Linux, I think the later version of this already included. So if you updated your Python version on Mac and Linux, it's ready to go, but you can definitely install it if you need to. There's Tkinter documentation, but it's best to go back to the note page and refer to the TK tutorial. It walks you through on how to install and create widgets. A second option that you can use is Qt, and some people refer to this as Qt, but it's Qt. And the Qt toolkit, you can use either PyQt or PySide. PyQt is not free. You have to pay for the license for this. It's proprietary, but PySide is open source and it is available. So you can check out Qt information. There's some tutorial video. It does come with an IDE and you can incorporate the package. You can select the appropriate library that you want to use. Qt can also be used for C++. Graphical user interface programming. And so for PyQt 5, there's some tutorial, and you can probably find some PySide tutorial videos that you can use. Now the package is going to be a little bit larger than what you've seen with Tkinter, but however, this is the available options for Python programming for graphical user interface. Another one that you might hear of that's very popular is going to be Kivy. And Kivy is cross-platform. It's allowing you to design graphical user interface for Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, and iOS. And it's written in CPython, a little bit different than your general Python. And so Kivy is free and it's distributed by MIT. So in any case, when you're using a toolkit, just keep in mind that you need to install toolkits. Legacy-wise, we would use pip install, but if you have the latest version in Mac OS and Linux, And in some cases with Windows, you can simply, import in Tkinter as it's already equipped with the later version. Now in Windows, traditionally we would use the pip install, and if you don't have this command enabled, meaning that if it's throwing an error when you're trying to input pip install Tkinter, for example, and it's telling you that pip is not an internal or external command, it could be that your Python path is not set up properly when you did the installation at the beginning of the class. So I put in a link for you to look at on how to troubleshoot, and it walks you through various options to troubleshoot. Prior to this, when I troubleshoot this on my own computer, what I just did was I just did a repair where I had it, allowing specific feature, and pip is one of them. And with that, I will be able to upgrade using the Python exe pip upgrade command, and that allows me to have the latest version of pip. Now in command prompt, when you put in pip install, it will tell you the outdated version, and it will give you the recommendation and the appropriate command to use, and you just have to follow that command, issue that command to upgrade your pip version so you can install different toolkit. Now you need to put in the toolkit name, and in some cases you need to put in the appropriate version. Tkinter is actually under the umbrella of the TCL under TK widget set, so you will likely find their resources via TCL. Now I recommend that you read the information about Tkinter, how it's used. I also included the link for different resources here for you. So if you wanted to take a look at how you can go to reference, there's some examples and how to incorporate the toolkit for various design. So when I wrote the instruction for this might be for the earlier version if it's not included. You can also, if your Tkinter is already installed, you can just simply start using it by skipping the installation process. So before we start looking into the example, one of the things that I want to mention is that when you work with Tkinter, you need to really import it. So this is the module, and we want to import this module in. And for the classes, that's always going to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. That means that it's going to be very low. It's going to inherit a lot of the built-in methods, and it's going to inherit the members and the methods from the superclasses. So now these classes are organized in a certain way, so that way it would be following under the namespace. So that means that they are not supposed to be instantiated independently. And it's only going to be instantiated once in an application, meaning that you don't need to do it explicitly. You don't need to create additional classes. The widget is not meant to be instantiated, and it's not meant to be subclassing. Now we got to think about how we would have specific events and when we should call or utilize certain features for that specific event. So let's take a look at this program, and this program is supposed to give you a button, and it's supposed to give you actually a couple buttons. One of the buttons is going to be stop. So let's walk ourselves through this example. So first what we have is we need to be able to build a frame where we would be laying down specific things inside that frame. And then after that we're going to make different type of widgets. So a button is considered a widget. A little text box that has some text in it is going to be another widget. So ultimately we wanted to build different widgets in order to have some kind of interaction with the user. And some of the component that we need to point out is that it is inheriting from the upper classes that came from the Tkinter module. So first here we have a class called application, and with it we're going to use the TK frame. This is a constructor, so we have in itself and we have master is none, and simply this is just a placeholder that we call master. Now the things that are important to think about is that you always would have some kind of pack here. And what this allows us to do is we are going to be able to have that pack at specific areas of our interface. So in Python, the pack method really positions a certain widget in a geometric area. So for example, we can have like a button that says quit, and it's going to be on the bottom of that frame, or in so that way the user can click quit when they wanted to exit or close out the application. We can have it at another widget that would be, let's say, text box, where they can enter some information closer to the top. So it's really going to position specific widget at a certain area of that frame. Now, so we have a constructor, and this is inheriting from the upper class, that's gonna the super class that's gonna come from the module. And next we are going to have this particular, we're gonna use the pack method here, and we're gonna call the pack method, and we're gonna call the create widget. Next, we're going to define the create widget method. This is our custom method now. And what we're going to do is we are going to have a member, hi there, and it's going to be a button. Now this has to be exact as it's typed or defined in the module. So you do not have an option to change this. This simply is taking the button template for the widget and putting it in, incorporating it into your program. So here what we're doing is we are creating a button, and for that button, so now these are the properties of the button. We're going to have a button, and the text of it, the string that's going to show on that button is going to be hello world and click me. And so when we look at this program and we run it so you can see it a little bit better. So here is my window, and I have a hello world, click me. And as you can see, even when I click it, it doesn't do much. But when I quit, it actually closed out my window. So now every time that the user click, it's going to say hi there everyone. So if the user clicked 20 times, it's going to keep repeating that. So now what we have is we have created a button and we have added a text showing hello world on the button, click me. Now whenever we click it, down here it's going to print hi there everyone, so we know that it's been clicked. So the position of that hi there, which is a button, it stores a button, that's going to be at the top. So when we ran this, as you can see, this is happening at the top of our window frame. And then on the next one, we have a second button that's laying underneath that, that is quit. And we simply, again, have a member called quit. It is a button, and this is its text display for the button quit. And if you want it into a certain font, FG here simply is telling us that's going to be our font, our text font, text color, that's going to be red. And you can utilize, you can see what type of color is acceptable, so you can implement a certain type. But keep in mind that your user might see certain color or they cannot see certain color. So when you design, you have to think about that. And then for the command, the master destroy is that after that, so the destroy method is a built-in method for this module, meaning that when we click it, it's going to destroy the window and it's going to make it go away. And again, we're going to pack this and we're going to put it on the bottom, which is the quit button in red. As you can see here, that's going to go on the bottom. Now, the third method is say hi, and it's going to print hi there everyone. So the reason why it's going to print down here when we click it is because we have it tied to the other button, which is hello world. So when we click the hello world, we're going to call on the say hi, which is defined down here, because it would do something, right? You want it to do something. So at this point, we have it print out hello, hi there everyone when the user clicked the button. And then when the user click quit, it's going to destroy the window. It's going to make it go away. Now, in all the widgets that you build, usually you would put a method and then you would have whatever widget that you wanted to create, and then you would call on specific method following. But importantly, that you would have something that's gonna be in the main loop, and also you need to have something that's defined here for the to call on the TK in the TK module. Now this, you can also take this line and put it above all the method, like right here, or you can put it down here. But ultimately what this does is it actually create a TK window, and that way we can build the widgets within it. Now for this part right here, so on the next line here, we create an object. So this is an object and called app. And this object is used to call the main loop. And this is absolutely necessary. Whatever you call your object here, it doesn't matter. You have to have a main loop. In whichever program that you would have, however many widgets at the end, you have to have a main loop. Otherwise, it does not work. Now, this main loop is infinite loop, as we want our events to always be listened to. So that way the system will always present the appropriate widgets as that program is ran. So when we click run like this, you notice that we would have the click me button 1, 2, 3. So every time I click, it calls on the hi there, and the hi there simply print out hi there everyone. And then when I quit, it's gonna close, destroy. So to wrap this up, this is really a simple interface where we have two buttons. First, we have to import, and you only need to do it once, and you can always use a TK. So we would import Tkinter as TK, and notice that that's what we use here, right? And next, and also use here. Next, we're going to have a class. We construct that class. We use self and master. This is a subclass, and for the master, it is represent the master. We would have it position, so we call it we set up the position geometrically, and then we also have set up, we call the next method, which is create widget. So we call on the pack and the create widget method. In our create widgets, and this is just, you know, a method that you can call whatever you want. In the create widget, you can say create buttons, create button 1, etc. We have it as it's a button because this member is gonna store a button, TK button, and its text is going to show hello world, click me. Now you can make it like this, where it's all enclosed in one set of parameters where you have multiple parameters, or you can have it in separate line like the above. So it's also a command, and when we say command, what that would do is it has some kind of action. And the action is to call on the say hi method, which is defined down here. And we're gonna pack this at the top. So that's gonna be like the physical location and the geometric area of it. Then we have a second button. It stores in the quit member. And this button is gonna have quit as the string to display. The string is gonna be red, and the command, the action that it's gonna have is it's gonna destroy. It's gonna go away when the user click it. And then we have a third method called say hi, and that's gonna print out hi there everyone based on the command of the create widget of the hi there button. Now, the next line here, again, this can be at the top or this can be on the bottom. This is simply to create a TK window. We have an object called app, and using that object, we're gonna call main loop. which is the continuous infinite loop for our program. And so as you can see, this is the example program that you see in your notes. I want you to save and run the program so that way you can check it out. So in the second example of our notes, this shows you how you can create a login screen or any type of screen where the user would enter the information. So our program would look something like this, where we can have the user input in their name and their password. So let's walk through the program real quick. So again, we're going to go ahead and import Tkinter as TK. And then we create a TK window and we call it root. You can call it anything you want, but by best practice, I think a lot of everyone in the industry just call it root. But you do see maybe a few people would use other identifier. So at this point, we create the TK window. Then at the position of the window, we're going to have the geometry set to be 600 by 400. This is going to give you the window size. If you want it larger, you can change this. Now next, what we're going to do is we are going to declare the string variable that's going to store the name and the password, because the user would input that and then we want to store it. So here is the name var and the pass w var. That's going to store the username input and the password input. And so we would use the tk.stringvar as the built-in from the TK module, Tkinter module, to be able to record that. Then we define a method that will get the username and the password and then print them on the screen. So we would have the first method called submit, and we are going to have name is nameEntry.get. So we're using the get method here, and same thing with the password. And then we're going to print the name and print the password. And then we are going to use the set method. So at this point, we're going to have the set method. So let's look at that. So here is my program that I run. So we can say KCWin, and the password is 12345. So when we click submit here, we should see our username and our password as we entered earlier. So this submit method allows us to get and set, so that way it stores that onto the variable, and then it's going to take that and it's going to display it so we can see. Then on the next part, we are going to make a label using widget label. So here is the TK label. We need to use that to make a label. We're going to store it into a variable called name label. It's going to be with root, and we're going to have a username and password. So when we take a look at this, this is actually a label, and this is actually a label. And this label is positioned inside our TK window. So if we wanted to call this registration, we can create a window that's going to be registration, but these are going to be the label that's going to be next to the text box that the user enter. So the name label is going to be TK label, and that's going to be username. And then you can have it as a certain type of font, the type, the size, etc. So this is going to be the property of the font as the font's defined here. Then with the name next to the label, we have to have a way that the user enters. So this, the entry, the name entry is this white text box area for entering the information. So name entry, that's going to be TK entry. And we can set, it's part of the root, the text variable, this is the name we gave it, it's going to be name var, which is from here, from the top, and then the font. So that's going to store into the name variable, and that's going to be the font and the type of that font. Same thing with the password label. We have a password label, and then we have a password entry. Okay, so now after that, we have to create a button where they can click submit. So at this point, when they click submit here, we need to make sure that it's gonna be submitting the information where it's gonna get and set. So we have a sub btn, that's gonna be a TK button, and our text is going to show is going to be submit. And you can make it a different color by using the code for the color. However, like red, blue, green, etc. Or if you simply use submit, it's going to default to black. You can also size the button, and this is the area where you can put in the length and the width of the button. How large or small you want it to be. So the button's property is going to be within the parameter of the TK button here. So we simply have it submit. And then what I wanted to show you is this part is really for alignment. So we wanted to have the label, the name label grid in the same row, which is the first row, that's row 0, and the first column. The name entry grid, that's going to be the row 0, column 1. Password label grid, here's the label, that's going to be row 1, column 0, and then the entry is going to be adjacent to it, row 1, column 1. And then the button is going to be in row 2 because it's the third row in column 1, so it's a little bit farther. So this kind of gives us a little bit of alignment in a table structure, as you can see. And then lastly, we have a root main loop. So this allows infinite loop for the window to be displayed, and then if we can also click close where it goes away, but that's defaulted to the Windows top level frame. So with that, you can see on how we can create something like a username and the password entry, record it, and be able to display it out onto show what the user has entered. And so I encourage you to practice, and when you go through the lab, please watch the lab video that I'm going to share next, so that way you can understand how to put together the lab. The whole point in this is to show you how simple widget can be added to the TK window using Tkinter in Python, so that way you can start playing with it. And there are a lot of different resources and tutorial for Tkinter if you wanted to explore a little bit further and be able to do that. But importantly, when we're using these tools, we have to understand the programming aspect of it. Okay. All right. So please watch my lab video for lab 5, and so that way you can complete the lab.